In sports, India to host the World Badminton Championship for the second time in 2026 as announced by the Badminton World Federation. Prestigious competition was organized in Hyderabad earlier in 2009.
Fans disappointed as 20-time Grand Slam champion Roger Federer withdraws from the Tokyo Olympics after suffering a setback with the existing knee injury. British #1 tennis player Johanna Konta also withdraws from the games. Alright, those are the top stories. Let's get to the news in detail now. We begin with the national headlines first.
And the countdown is on for the Tokyo Olympics, set to begin in about 9 days. Ahead of the Games, Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacted with the Indian athletes bound for Tokyo. And he interacted with their families as well. He underscored the first for India this time, saying that for the first time, such a large number of players have qualified for Olympics from India. And there are many sports in which India has qualified for the very first time. While urging the countrymen to continue to cheer for India, PM shared a winning mantra with the players: don't take stress and stay focused on giving your best.
इसलिए ये देश का दायित्व है कि आपके साथ डटकर खड़ा रहे। आप में एक कॉमन फैक्टर दिख रहा है, डिसिप्लिन, डेडिकेशन और डिटर्मिनेशन। आप में कमिटमेंट भी है, कॉम्पिटिटिवनेस भी है। यही क्वालिटीज न्यू इंडिया की भी है। इसलिए आप सब न्यू इंडिया के रिफ्लेक्शन हैं।
Indian athletes are all set to bring back laurels from the Tokyo Olympics. In a send-off to remember, Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacted with 15 players who are part of the Olympic contingent via video conferencing. Sharing words of encouragement, the Prime Minister said that his government is committed to strengthening the sporting spirit and providing all possible support to the athletes and players.
जैसे खेल के मैदान में मेहनत के साथ सही स्ट्रेटेजी जुड़ जाती है तो जीत पक्की हो जाती है। यही बात ग्राउंड के बाहर भी लागू होती है। देश ने खेलो इंडिया और फिट इंडिया जैसे अभियान चलाकर मिशन मोड में सही स्ट्रेटेजी से काम किया तो परिणाम भी आप देख रहे हैं। पहली बार इतनी बड़ी संख्या में खिलाड़ियों ने ओलंपिक के लिए क्वालिफाई किया है। कई खेल ऐसे हैं जिनमें भारत ने पहली बार क्वालिफाई किया है। साथियों, हमारे यहां कहा जाता है अभ्यासात जायते नृणाम द्वितीया प्रकृति ही, अर्थात हम जैसा अभ्यास करते हैं, जैसा प्रयास करते हैं, धीरे धीरे वो हमारे स्वभाव का हिस्सा हो जाता है।
Elaborating on the challenges posed by COVID-19, the Prime Minister lauded the players and athletes for their dedication and hard work. He urged the nation to recognize their sacrifices and cheer for India. He described India's Olympic contingent as the face of New India and an inspiration for one and all.
आपको और देश के युवाओं का जोश देखकर ये कह सकता हूं कि वो दिन दूर नहीं जब जीतना ही न्यू इंडिया की आदत बन जाएगी। और अभी तो ये शुरुआत है। आप टोक्यो जाकर जब देश का परचम लहराएंगे तो उसी पूरी दुनिया देखेगी। हाँ, ये बात जरूर याद रखना है कि जीतने का प्रेशर लेकर नहीं खेलना है। अपने दिल दिमाग को बस एक ही बात कहिए कि मुझे अपना बेस्ट परफॉर्म करना है।
Since 2014, the goal has been to enhance the performance of players. Results of this are visible across several international arenas. For the first time, a total of 126 athletes across 18 sporting disciplines from India will be heading to the Tokyo Olympics, showcasing the true spirit of sports of New India.
आप में से कोई दक्षिण से हैं, कोई उत्तर से हैं, कोई पूरब से हैं तो कोई पूर्वोत्तर से हैं, लेकिन अब आप सब यहां टीम इंडिया का हिस्सा है। आप सब देश के लिए खेलने जा रहे हैं। यही डायवर्सिटी, यही टीम स्पिरिट ही एक भारत श्रेष्ठ भारत की पहचान है। साथियों, आप सब इस बात के साक्षी हैं कि देश किस तरह आज एक नई सोच, नई अप्रोच के साथ अपने हर खिलाड़ी के लिए साथ खड़ा है।
Prime Minister Modi expressed regret at not being able to meet the contingent in person because of COVID-19, assuring the athletes that he would welcome them back in person. Bureau Report, DD India.
Prime Minister interacted with young shooting sensation Elavenil Valarivan, trained in Gujarat. Elavenil will compete in the 10 meters air rifle category. She is the world #1 in her event and will also be a part of the mixed team. She is one of India's best bets in the category. Quoting Doordarshan's story based on Elavenil's journey, Prime Minister lauded her efforts and wished her for the upcoming Olympics.
A shooter who is catching the world's attention.
Every athlete wants to own a tricolored jacket. The biggest gift any athlete can get is to get to represent their country.
A story on Doordarshan that caught the Prime Minister's attention.
अभी मैं दूरदर्शन पे एक कार्यक्रम देख रहा था, उसमें मैं आपके माताजी पिताजी को सुन रहा था और वो संस्कार धाम में आपने इसका प्रारंभ किया था, इसका पूरा वर्णन कर रही थी और वहां का बड़ा गर्व के वहीं जाकर के वो आपको याद कर रही थी। अच्छा, स्कूल से ओलंपिक तक बहुत सारे युवा आपके इस जर्नी के बारे में जानना चाहेंगे।
She might be just 21, but Elavenil Valarivan is already the top-ranked women's 10-meter air rifle shooter in the world. Elavenil began her shooting journey from the Sanskar Dham shooting range. Her life changed completely when she joined the Gagan Narang Academy. Interacting with the Prime Minister, Elavenil said she had dabbled in many fields as a youngster.
मैंने एक्चुअली काफी सारे स्पोर्ट्स ट्राई किए थे शूटिंग के पहले। मुझे बचपन से ही स्पोर्ट्स बहुत ही पसंद था, एथलेटिक्स, बैडमिंटन, जूडो वगैरह ट्राई किया था। लेकिन जब मैंने शूटिंग शुरू किया तब मुझे एक बहुत ही ज्यादा एक्साइटमेंट मिला था इस गेम में, क्योंकि हमको बहुत ज्यादा स्टेडी रहना होता है, बहुत ज्यादा कामनेस चाहिए होता है।
Elavenil is truly an inspiration for New India and represent a new generation of women athletes who are fearless. In Tokyo, she will be carrying the hopes of a billion population. With Tapush Bhattacharya, Bureau Report, DD India.
And Youth Affairs and Sports Minister Anurag Thakur also participated in the interaction. He hailed Prime Minister Modi's leadership and his passion for encouraging the sporting fraternity. Anurag Thakur credited Prime Minister for the spirit of cheer for India that has engulfed the nation.
कोरोना महामारी जैसी विषम परिस्थितियों के दौरान भी आपने खिलाड़ियों का मनोबल नहीं गिरने दिया और समय समय पर आपने खिलाड़ियों से वार्तालाप करके उनका मार्गदर्शन भी किया है और उन्हें जोश से सरोबार भी किया है। जैसा कि हम सब जानते हैं, हाल ही में आपने समस्त देशवासियों से टोक्यो ओलंपिक्स जाने वाले खिलाड़ियों का मनोबल बढ़ाने के लिए चीयर फॉर इंडिया का आह्वान भी किया था और मैं आपके ध्यान में लाना चाहता हूं, देश भर के कोने कोने, लेह लद्दाख से लेकर कन्याकुमारी तक, गुजरात से लेकर अरुणाचल तक लोग सेल्फीज भी खींच रहे हैं, डाल भी रहे हैं, खिलाड़ियों का मनोबल भी बढ़ा रहे हैं। और आज जब आप इस कार्यक्रम के माध्यम से शुरुआत करेंगे, कल से पूरे देश के लोग हमारे ओलंपिक खिलाड़ियों को अपना आशीर्वाद, योगदान, सहयोग देने के लिए और चीयर करने के लिए एकजुट हो जाएंगे।
All right, let's change track to the MEA visiting Tajikistan. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has arrived in Tajikistan on a two-day visit at the invitation of Foreign Minister of Tajikistan, Sirojuddin Moridin. Also, Dr. S. Jaishankar began his visit by meeting with Afghan Foreign Minister Mohammad Hanif Atmar. He said that he is looking forward to the meeting of SCO contact group on Afghanistan. External Affairs Minister will attend the meeting of Council of Foreign Ministers of SCO member states. The meeting will discuss the achievements of the organization as it celebrates the 20th anniversary of its formation this year. It will also assess the preparation for the upcoming SCO Council of Heads of States on 16th and 17th September in Dushanbe and exchange views on current international and regional issues. Dr. S. Jaishankar also met Foreign Minister of Uzbekistan, Abdulaziz Kamilov, on Tuesday. Both the leaders discussed connectivity, bilateral ties and the Afghanistan situation. Dr. S. Jaishankar said that India is looking forward to attending the Tashkent Connectivity Conference. Uzbekistan's capital Tashkent will be hosting the International Conference, Central and South Asia, Regional Connectedness, Challenges and Opportunities. The conference that is slated to be held on 15th and 16th of July will have amongst its themes security and connectivity. Representatives of Russia, Iran, Pakistan, China, US and the European Union are to participate in the meet. Joining us for this is Amritpal Singh, our correspondent on phone line. Amrit, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has arrived in Tajikistan and he is looking forward to the meeting of the SCO Contact Group of Afghanistan. I would want you to spell out more on this. This meeting comes at a time when Taliban is making advances in Afghanistan. How important and how relevant is this grouping when we talk of the timing of this meeting? Amrit? Amrit, are we audible?
Right, we're trying to connect to our colleague Amrit. Meanwhile, the story that we're tracking is External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar's visit to Tajikistan. Host of issues in focus, his coordination with the SCO and also the issue of Afghanistan. Moving on, earlier on Tuesday, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar addressed inaugural session of 16th CII Bank Conclave on India and Africa Project Partnership. S. Jaishankar said that our activities and initiatives are designed to respond to the needs of Africa and the priorities of its people.
India's approach to development partnership with Africa is guided by the Kampala principles enunciated by Prime Minister Modi in 2018. Our activities and initiatives are designed to respond to the needs of Africa and the priorities of its people, with envisaged core capabilities and core benefits while promoting local ownership. As a result, we see a unique level of trust that is even more valuable as we contemplate the challenges ahead.
Dr. S. Jaishankar also said that in post-COVID scenario, there are 4 domains that should become our focus of collaborative activities. They are public health, digital delivery, skilling and capacity building with green economy.
In a post-COVID scenario, there are 4 domains that should become the focus of our collaborative activities. 1, public health. 2, digital delivery. 3, skilling and capacity building. And 4, the green economy.
All right, joining us is our correspondent Amritpal Singh again. Amrit, the Minister of External Affairs is in Tajikistan for a 2-day visit and he will be attending the SCO Contact Group on Afghanistan. I would want you to spell out more details as to how significant is this meet, given the fact that at present Taliban is making advances into Afghanistan. Speak more about its relevance and how important is this as a forum when we talk of the current situation in Afghanistan.
Priti, the SCO meeting is a very important meeting at this juncture when, as you rightly said, the Taliban is making advances because it affects not just Afghanistan but the whole region, and it has consequences on the stability of the whole region. And given the fact that SCO's membership includes primarily, the region, Russia, China, India, even Pakistan. So the SCO's meeting on Afghanistan would be, this particular session on Afghanistan during the SCO meeting would be of key importance. as to what should be the regional response. India has been stressing at various fora while the External Affairs Minister held a meeting with Sergei Lavrov on his bilateral during his Russian visit, and also during his stopover in Iran, where he stressed for a regional response, and he stressed that an inclusive political process has to be followed in Afghanistan, which includes all minorities, and what is good for Afghanistan is good for the region. So that is of key concern at the moment, as the Americans have announced that they shall be pulling out their troops by the end of August. So, and Taliban, but day by day, a district is falling in Afghanistan. So I think the External Affairs Minister would be very strongly stressing the point that the region needs to come together and work out a political process where the intense fighting going on between the Afghan National Forces and Taliban and the humanitarian crisis which is unfolding in Afghanistan needs to be arrested at the moment.
Right, Amrit, a little more on the kind of sort of options available with the SCO grouping to tackle the situation in Afghanistan in a context where America has withdrawn. You mentioned that Pakistan is also a regular member of SCO. So is India. A few years ago, both of them entered the SCO grouping as permanent members. And we also know about the open support that Pakistan has for the Taliban. So in that sense, how influential could SCO as a grouping be in controlling the crisis?
So very good. In fact, if you look at any kind of international forum which could exert influence at this point in time, SCO is the most relevant organization because it comprises of members who have a direct stake in Afghanistan. Yes. And they are many of them are immediate neighbors of Afghanistan. Now they share land borders with Afghanistan. They are regional partners of Afghanistan. I think SCO has what is perceived to be the influence that can exert both upon the Taliban and the Afghan National Forces to reach some sort of political settlement and diffuse this humanitarian crisis that has emerged in Afghanistan. You mentioned that Pakistan sees Taliban as its stooge, and it sees Afghanistan as its strategic backyard. So I think friends of Pakistan within the SCO can exert upon Pakistan to see that how it could be a counterproductive approach for the stability of the region if Taliban wishes to enforce the kind of agenda that it pursues or it espouses. So I think in that sense, the SCO can exert a very important influence on both forces, the Taliban and the Afghan National Forces, to reach a kind of political truce, and more importantly, to avert the humanitarian crisis which is unfolding in Afghanistan.
Right, Amrit, thanks very much for joining us with those inputs. We'll have to wait and watch how the SCO leadership discusses and tackles the challenge of Afghanistan.
Well, let's turn focus to the vaccination, the COVID situation across the country. India's COVID vaccination coverage has exceeded 38.5 crore. Cumulatively, 38 crore 50 lakh 19,469 beneficiaries have been inoculated so far. The new phase of universalization of COVID-19 vaccination commenced from 21st of June. More than 34.1 lakh vaccine doses have been administered on Tuesday. 15 lakh 49,982 vaccine doses were administered as the first dose, and 1 lakh 19,121 vaccine doses have been given as second dose in the age group of 18 to 44 years yesterday. Cumulatively, 11 crore 59 lakh 50,619 persons in the age group of 18 to 44 years across 37 states and union territories have received their first dose, and a total of 40 lakh 19,089 persons have received their second dose since the start of phase 3 of the vaccination drive.
And yesterday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacted with chief ministers of 8 northeastern states, where he focused on strict monitoring of mutations of COVID-19, keeping track of all variants, and he also cautioned against crowding at hill stations without observing proper precautions, with an emphasis on preventing the third wave of the pandemic. Referring to the 23,000 crore rupees package approved by the Union Cabinet for improving testing, treatment, infrastructure, PM said the package will help in strengthening health infrastructure of the Northeast.
टेस्टिंग और ट्रीटमेंट से जुड़े इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में सुधार करते हुए आगे चल रहा है। इसके लिए हाल ही में कैबिनेट ने 23,000 करोड़ रुपए, भारत सरकार ने 23,000 करोड़ रुपए का एक नया पैकेज भी स्वीकृत किया है। नॉर्थ ईस्ट के हर राज्य को इस पैकेज से अपने हेल्थ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को मजबूत करने में बहुत मदद मिलेगी। इस पैकेज से नॉर्थ ईस्ट में टेस्टिंग, डायग्नोस्टिक, जीनोम सीक्वेंसिंग, इसको बहुत बढ़ावा मिलेगा। जहां केस बढ़ रहे हैं वहां तुरंत आईसीयू बेड कैपेसिटी बढ़ाने में भी इससे मदद मिलेगी।
And our colleague Taposh is joining us with more updates on the COVID situation in the country. Good morning, Taposh. In the past few days and weeks, we've seen disturbing images of crowding at hill stations. And yesterday, Prime Minister himself spoke about how each one of us have to bear our responsibility in controlling the COVID situation. How is that message taken across? How are local administrations ensuring that crowding can be avoided at various tourist destinations?
Absolutely, without an doubt, and that's if the public is keen to avoid the repetition of what happened after the second wave of the pandemic, they must actually come together and follow the COVID appropriate behavior protocol, especially going to places like hill stations, northeast, where even though the numbers are less, but with the influx of the tourists and the threat of COVID-19 in reaching these places is even acute, and that's what the point that the Prime Minister spoke about. Obviously, there is a spurt of cases in Northeast. He definitely spoke about the need to increase the testing, treatment, and tracking methodology, along with the fact that the vaccination process in these states needs to be ramped up, along with creating the health infrastructure, especially COVID hospitals, COVID beds, and the genome sequencing that he spoke about. So those are certain things that needs to be done. But from an individual perspective, from the citizen's perspective, it is important to be responsible and behave in that manner. Purely in the terms that we saw what happened during the second wave when people thronged to markets, not wearing masks, not adhering to the COVID appropriate behavior, and what happened after that is there in front of us. So if one wants to avoid the repetition of the aftermath of COVID-19 second wave, then these methods, these appropriate behaviors protocol has to be followed in toto, and that is something that the Prime Minister has been talking about for a long time, is stressing the need to follow these points in toto, so that we do not fall into the trap of COVID-19 and the effect aftermath of the second wave that we saw in the last few months back.
All right, Tapas, thank you so much for joining us with those inputs. And Rajasthan on Tuesday reported 11 cases of the Kappa variant of COVID-19. Now, this was informed by State Health Minister Raghu Sharma. Giving further details, he said that out of the 11 patients, 4 are from Alwar and Jaipur each, 2 from Barmer and 1 is from Bhilwara. The matter came to limelight after the IGIB lab in Delhi confirmed the presence of the Kappa variant in 9 samples through genome sequencing. The rest 2 samples were confirmed by SMS Medical College and Hospital in Jaipur. The Health Minister said that the Kappa variant is moderate as compared to the Delta variant of COVID-19. He also appealed to the public to follow COVID-appropriate behavior with full discipline.
On to some other news. Security forces, police personnel have successfully gunned down Pakistani LET commander Ajaz along with 2 local terrorists in an encounter in Pulwama. A joint operation was launched by J&K police and SFs. Incriminating material, including arms and ammunition, have been recovered. Search is underway. And our colleague Salman Qazi is joining us from Jammu and Kashmir. Salman, take us through the details that you can share with us on this operation at the moment.
This encounter started yesterday night. There was intelligence input regarding the presence of militants, and security forces, as they were approaching the area, they were fired upon by the hiding militants, and in the resultant exchange of fire, which is still taking place, 3 militants along with an LET commander Ajaz, who was a name digger of Abu Huraira, was
All right, we've lost contact there with Salman Qazi. We'll try getting back to him again to get more on that. Meanwhile, let's turn focus to other news now. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit Varanasi tomorrow. He will inaugurate and lay the foundation stone of multiple development projects during the visit. At around 11 a.m., Prime Minister will inaugurate various public projects and works, including a 100-bed MCH wing in BHU, multi-level parking at Gadolia, Ro-Ro vessels for tourism development on River Ganga, and also 3-lane flyover bridge on Varanasi-Ghazipur highway. Projects worth around 744 crore rupees will be inaugurated. He will also lay the foundation stones of several projects and public works worth around rupees 839 crores. This will include the Centre for Skill and Technical Support of Central Institute of Petrochemical Engineering and Technology. 143 rural projects under Jal Jeevan Mission and mango and vegetable integrated pack house in Karkinav. Prime Minister will also inaugurate the International Cooperation and Convention Centre Rudraksh, which has been constructed with Japanese assistance. Thereafter, he will inspect the Maternal and Child Health Wing, BHU.
The Uttarakhand government has decided to cancel the Kanwar Yatra this year owing to the threat of COVID-19 infections. Decision was taken after a high-level meeting between Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami and top officials of the state government. After the meet, Dhami said they do not want to turn Haridwar into Corona hotspot and put people's lives at risk. During the meeting, health experts put forth their view on the devastating effect of Delta Plus variant, the threat of third wave of coronavirus, and upholding the value of human lives. The pilgrimage had been cancelled last year as well due to the first wave of COVID-19. Meanwhile, Minister of State in the Ministry of Defence and Ministry of Tourism, Ajay Bhatt, has said decision taken by Uttarakhand government is essential. He said people's lives should not be in danger.
प्रधानमंत्री जी बार-बार अनुरोध कर रहे हैं कि भीड़-भाड़ से बचें और जो कोविड के मापदंड हैं उनको अपनाएं। तो हमने भी प्रार्थना की है सबसे और हमारी सरकार ने कह दिया है कि वर्तमान परिस्थितियों में किसी भी तरह से हम लोग कांवड़ यात्रा नहीं चला सकते। हम लोगों की जिंदगियों को खतरे में नहीं डाल सकते हैं। इसलिए हमारी सरकार ने जो कदम उठाया है, धामी जी की सरकार ने, वो ठीक और उचित समय पर उठाया है।
In Himachal Pradesh, 9 people have been killed and 8 others are missing due to flash floods in the last 2 days. According to the data provided by the State Revenue Department and the State Disaster Management Authority, 142 roads are blocked in the state, 266 power transformers and 211 drinking water schemes have been affected. Life is still not back on track in many areas of the state. Snowflakes fell on the high peaks of Lahore, including Rohtang, on Monday night. Weather remained clear in the state on Tuesday. In view of the landslide and flood situation, the administration has decided to ban the movement of vehicles on the Manali-Leh road. All vehicles going to Leh after 4 p.m. will not be allowed to pass in front of Jispa in Lahore. The blocked road near Madgran on Pangi Kilad Manali road remained closed on Tuesday as well. The administration has instructed the common people along with tourists not to go towards the river, drain and also other sensitive areas. 10 roads in Kullu district, 43 in Sirmaur remained closed. Nandini is joining us to get us more on that. Nandini, we've given detailed account of the havoc which has been unleashed by the weather in view of the flash floods that struck Himachal Pradesh. You spell out more details. How has the morning begun today to begin with?
The morning is today quite bright, so the NDRF team who have been deployed for rescue work will have ample time to go on with the rescue work. Meanwhile, the havoc has been created throughout Himachal Pradesh, particularly in Kangra and Sirmaur district. The Kangra incident which happened yesterday, still 5 to 6 people are missing in that incident. 5 bodies have been recovered. And if we talk about whole Himachal Pradesh, then 9 people have been killed and 8 are still missing presently.
Right. Nandini, also take us through the kind of directions that have been given by the administration, given the tourist influx that we've seen in the recent weeks to Himachal. What is to be expected ahead and what directions for the tourists?
Exactly, the government has asked all the tourists who are visiting Himachal that not to venture out near the rivers and the inflated nalas or river. After 4 p.m. it has been restricted on that road. Besides this, the government has told the tourists visiting Himachal Pradesh not to travel when there is heavy rains in the region, and they have also told not to venture out, not to problems for them.
Right then, Nandini, thanks very much for joining us with those inputs from Himachal. And moving on, let's talk stock of situation in Bihar. There has been no significant improvement in the flood situation in the state. 16 blocks of Muzaffarpur district are most affected. Over 1,28,000 people are being given cooked food through 106 community kitchens in the district. One company each of the NDRF and SDRF have been deployed for relief and rescue operations. 237 boats have been deployed in the flood affected areas for transportation and to conduct rescue operations. Road connectivity has been broken in Jalwara Panchayat with Asra in Kyoti block of Darbhanga. 4 teams of the NDRF are helping the people. Kyoti block of the district remained most affected, where road connectivity has been cut. About 1 to 1.5 lakh cusecs of water is still being discharged from the Kosi and Gandak barrages. The Met Department has predicted light to moderate rain in different parts of the state today. And our colleague Salman Haider is joining us from Patna with more updates on the situation in Bihar. Salman, good morning. Take us through the flood situation in Bihar at the moment and how is the relief work progressing there?
See, in Muzaffarpur alone, 10 blocks are fully submerged in the flood waters. Total number of the affected blocks has risen to 16, as you already said. Slight improvement have been reported from Madhubani area, Madhubani district. But in Purvi Champaran at Lal Beria Ghat and Ahirwaliya Ghat, the Buri Gandak is still above the danger mark. In Gopalganj, Samastipur, Khagadiya, Araria, Sitamarhi, the rivers are at least at 10 places the rivers are flowing above the danger mark. So the NDRF and SDRF teams are putting all out effort to mitigate the intensity of the flood and mainly the boats are being used now. Over 300 boats have been deployed in the flood affected areas to reach rations and other relief material. Even medical teams are going to the far-flung villages, inundated or maroon villages to reach the medical assistance to the people who have fallen ill. But still there are reports of scarcity of snake bite serum. As you know, snake bites becomes frequent in the flood affected areas, and also it may be underlined that the crops of paddy particularly, the seed were sown in the flood affected areas are over 33%. Those fields, paddy fields, have been damaged, and the sugar cane crop is already destroyed in those areas. So this is the situation, but Met Office has predicted light to moderate rain today. So the situation has not improved. No significant improvement has been seen in flood affected areas. Yes.
All right, no significant improvement seen in the flood affected areas, Salman, but also generally after the floods strike a place, we see there is an outbreak of an epidemic. You tell us that medical teams are using boats to make sure that medical assistance is given to the people in far-flung areas. Let us know more about how well equipped are the hospitals there, are the medical establishments there, given that the people, the administration also has to keep in mind the pandemic that is also existing, along with the relief and rescue operations that have to be provided to the people.
That the problem you are mentioning comes after the flood water has receded, but flood water is still there when filth and garbage flood water left behind. At that time, the medical emergency or epidemic-like situation arise. But right now, the hospitals are somewhat equipped with the to deal with such an emergency, because COVID cases are coming in low numbers. So the medical teams are there, and vaccination is also going on through both ambulances in Muzaffarpur particularly. So the things are there, and the administration is gearing up for such type of emergencies. And I said already the dog and snake bites vaccines serums are somewhat scarce in some areas, but the state health department has said they are making adequate arrangements for the same. Yes.
All right, Salman, thank you so much for joining us with those in course. That was our correspondent Salman Haider telling us more about the current situation in Bihar with regard to the floods there. We'll keep you updated. Up next, let's talk of web review.
Absolutely, and our colleague Abhishek Mahajan joins us with more updates. Abhishek will be connecting with us to get us more details from the web review. Abhishek, over to you if you're connected.
Yeah, hi, good morning to Subhendu and Preeti. The first story that we have taken is from Hindu. The headline says, work from home fueling cyber attacks, says global financial watchdog. And this is a survey which is done by the Financial Stability Board, which says that the cyber activities such as phishing, malware and ransomware grew from fewer than 5,000 per week. And they are talking about February 2020 last year. It grew from 5,000 per week to more than 2 lakh per week in late April 2021. So you can see the gravity of the situation here. And financial firms may need to bolster their defenses clearly here because the work from home is not going to lessen, it's going to increase only from here. And most cyber frameworks did not envisage a scenario of near universal remote working and the exploitation of such a situation by the by the threat actors. And the report is a first take on the lessons that we have learned from the pandemic's impact on the financial stability. So the second story that we have taken is from the Indian Express, which says that the association seeks relaxation in COVID norms. They're talking about Maharashtra here. Over 40% of restaurant hotels in Maharashtra have permanently closed. And this is the request is by the Hotel and Restaurant Association of Western India, which is called HRAWI, and they say they have submitted a representation before Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Uddhav Thackeray, and other ministers and officials of the state government requesting relief of the industry in the state. And the association has demanded revision in the timings of the COVID-19 protocols that they can open their shop from 7 a.m. in the morning to 12:30 a.m. 2 hours increase that they have demanded. And currently on the weekdays, the increase are allowed to operate from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. and on weekends only online delivery or parcels are permitted. So this is what they have requested. And the third story that we have taken is from the Hindustan Times, which says Ghaziabad to conduct antibody tests for fully vaccinated beneficiaries. So this is the first step that has been taken by the Ghaziabad. They will test 500 random people, mostly healthcare and the frontline workers who are fully vaccinated against the COVID-19 to find out the level of antibodies against the COVID-19, the SARS-CoV-2, the virus. And mostly healthcare and frontline workers will be part of this. And the fourth story, the last story that they've taken is from the Fox, which says that the Roger Federer, 20-time Grand Slam winner Roger Federer, gets withdrawn from Tokyo Olympics. And this is not because, like Nick Kyrgios also withdrew, just because fans will not be able to watch the Tokyo Olympics from the ground, from the field. He is withdrawn because of knee injury. So, and we also know that last month also he had withdrawn from the French Open owing to knee injury, and then he took part in Wimbledon but couldn't go that far. He lost to Huber in the quarterfinals. But we all know that he had won the medal in 2008 Beijing Olympics in doubles, and then he went on to win silver in singles in 2012 London Olympics. But it's very disappointing that he won't be part of Tokyo Olympics, which will start from 23rd. Rafael Nadal will also not be part of Tokyo Olympics. Dominic Thiem, Wawrinka, Nick Kyrgios is withdrawn because fans will not be seen in the field or on the ground. Serena Williams, Simona Halep, and Bianca Andreescu of Canada also will not be part of Tokyo Olympics. And Novak Djokovic has also said that he's also not sure about taking part. He was 50-50 about competing in the Tokyo Olympics. That's the statement that he had given. Well, Preeti and Vendu, that's all we have in this web review segment. Back to you.
All right there, Abhishek. Thanks very much for getting us those stories from news portals. And Preeti, time now to move forward.
Now we'll turn focus to international updates in our segment Across the Globe. Nepal's president appointed veteran Sher Bahadur Deoba as Prime Minister on Tuesday, a day after the Supreme Court reinstated Parliament that was dissolved in May in a months-long political crisis. The new leader's immediate task is to procure COVID-19 vaccines and control the spread of COVID-19 that has infected more than 658,000 people and killed nearly 10,000. The experts say that these figures still fail to reflect the true toll. Deoba, head of the centrist Nepali Congress Party, will head a coalition with former Maoist rebels and a party representing a minority community dominant on Nepal's southern plains. Deoba, who has served as Prime Minister 4 times in the past, must win vote of confidence in the Parliament next month.
Some news from Haiti. Haitian government on Tuesday announced a committee to organize the funeral of assassinated President Jovenel Moïse. Speaking to media, Acting Prime Minister Claude Joseph said the committee will organize dignified funeral for Moïse. Joseph said funeral ceremonies would be organized in agreement with the president's wife, Martine Moïse, who is recovering in a U.S. hospital from injuries sustained during the assassination. He added that one of the nation's main priorities is to bring those responsible for Moïse's killing to justice.
Update from Cuba now. Thousands of Cubans took to streets on Monday, protesting from Havana to Santiago, chanting "Down with the dictatorship," calling for President Diaz-Canel to step down. Police used tear gas to disperse crowds, while officers used plastic pipes to beat the protesters. One person died and several others, including security officials, were injured during the protests. Cuba, meanwhile, restricted access to social media and messaging platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp and Telegram, amidst widespread anti-government protests.
And United States also had reacted to it, but protesters in Washington and Miami also took to the streets on Tuesday to support the actions of demonstrators in Cuba. Demonstrators in Miami called for Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel to step down. In Washington, protesters called for Biden administration to do more to support the people of Cuba.
The U.S. State Department, meanwhile, has called for calm in Cuba and said that it was concerned by the images of violence there that it had been seen in the last few days. Briefing media, U.S. State Department spokesman Ned Price said that the United States was always considering options that would allow it to support Cuban people.
We remain deeply concerned by the Cuban government's, quote, call to combat, and by the images of violence that we have seen over the past 2 days. We call for calm and we condemn any violence against those protesting peacefully, and we equally call on the Cuban government to release anyone detained for peaceful protest.
Moving on, let's now take a look at updates on the COVID-19 front from across the world. The world continues to battle COVID-19. So far, over 18 crore 85 lakh people have tested positive across the world, while the number of recoveries from COVID stand at above 17 crore 23 lakh. The deadly virus has claimed more than 40 lakh 65,000 lives worldwide. The United States continues to remain the worst affected from COVID-19, with the number of cases crossing 3 crore 48 lakh. The number of deaths in the country from the virus stands at above 6 lakh 23,000.
Indonesia reported a record increase of COVID infections on Tuesday as authorities unveiled plans to order liquid oxygen and tens of thousands of concentrators from abroad to treat patients suffering from the respiratory disease. The Southeast Asian nation is fighting a devastating new virus outbreak that has stretched to the parts of the health system to breaking point. 47,899 new cases were reported on Tuesday, the sixth daily record in the past 10 days, and up about sevenfold from a month ago, with total infections now topping 26 lakh. It also reported 864 new deaths, taking the total fatalities to over 68,000.
A COVID-19 vaccination center in Malaysia has been ordered to close for sanitization after more than 200 volunteers and workers there tested positive over the weekend. Those inoculated from July 9th to 12th at the center, about 25 kilometers outside of Kuala Lumpur, they are advised to self-isolate for a period of 10 days. The facility has a capacity of about 3,000 doses daily. Of the 453 workers and volunteers screened, 204 were tested positive. The incident comes as Malaysia reported over 11,000 new coronavirus infections on Tuesday, the most number of cases recorded in a single day since the start of the pandemic. The center will resume vaccination today after sanitization and a change in the staff.
Up next, all the sports updates in Sports Track. India will host the World Badminton Championship for the second time in 2026. The sports governing body, Badminton World Federation, announced on Tuesday India was scheduled to organize the Sudirman Cup in 2023, but the Badminton World Federation decided to award the hosting rights of the World Mixed Team Championships to China. This will only be the second time that India will be hosting the World Championship, with Hyderabad having played host to the prestigious event in 2009.
And Swiss maestro Roger Federer has announced his decision to pull out of the Tokyo Olympics days after being named in the Switzerland Olympic squad. The 20-time Grand Slam champion returned to action earlier this year after missing out on most of 2020 due to multiple knee injuries.
Johanna Konta has also withdrawn from the Tokyo Olympics after a positive test for COVID-19 affected her preparations. Konta was forced to withdraw from Wimbledon a day before the Grand Slam after a member of her team tested positive for COVID-19.
Moving on, let's now talk about good health in our health segment. good health has much to do with shedding poor habits. Tobacco use is a cause of great concern due to its serious impact on health. Let's take a look at this report to know about how it endangers our health.
Tobacco use is a leading cause of cancer and death worldwide. People who use tobacco products or who are regularly around environmental tobacco smoke, also known as second-hand smoke, have an increased risk of cancer because tobacco products and second-hand smoke have many chemicals that damage the DNA.
Tobacco happens to be the single most preventable cause of cancer. That is fairly well known. Practically 40% of all cancers of the human body are tobacco related. It has been seen that tobacco in all its form, that is smoking and non-smoking, are a major problem in this country. More than 12 parts of the body, whether it is the oral cavity, the lungs, and all the way down to pancreas and urinary bladder, are affected by tobacco. But what is more frequently seen, that in addition to cancer, a person may have chronic lung disease, he is more prone to infections like tuberculosis. Also, especially in the younger age group, you find that the skin tone, especially in women, becomes a problem.
Tobacco use causes many types of cancers and has adverse effects on all organs of the body. Tobacco smoke is made up of more than 7,000 chemicals, including over 70 known to cause cancer. Some of these substances cause heart and lung disease too, and all of them can be deadly.
The youth of the country are gradually getting more and more enticed to using tobacco products as a style statement or just to impress other people and to appear cool. This is something which is totally avoidable. The diseases that are caused by tobacco as one goes around in the ages are entirely preventable. There are various patches, there are nicotine gums, there is a cessation helpline which is available for people who are addicted. This is one addiction which should be totally avoided, not only by the elders but also by the youth, so they have a long time to live, and if the diseases are there, it will cause a lot of health problems in their future life.
People who quit smoking regardless of their age have substantial gains in life expectancy compared to those who continue to smoke. There is no safe level of tobacco use. Say no to tobacco and choose a healthy life. Kiran Bhardwaj, DD News.
Yes, say no to tobacco and choose a healthy life. Up next, we'll get you the temperatures across major cities of the country. All right, with that, we've come to the end of this edition of Breakfast News. But every day we leave you with this reminder. Remember, we are at a very decisive stage in the battle against COVID. Let's not put our guards down. Wear a mask, wear it correctly and properly, and keep following COVID-appropriate behavior. And those eligible, please go and get yourself vaccinated.
Absolutely. And as we conclude this edition of Breakfast News, in these final moments, we take you to the beautiful Paris, to the historical monuments. Enjoy the visuals. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Namaskar.